My very first mentor, of course, was my mother. Um, my mother came from a family of 13 children who were born. 11 of them grew to adulthood. So I had aunties and uncles everywhere. I had cousins everywhere, and I thought I was related to all of Louisville, Kentucky. That was a wonderfully nurturing experience for me. My mother, being one of the four youngest of the 13, learned to be quite independent, because by the time she was born, most of her sisters and brothers were adults and had children of their own, right? Or a number of them did. My uncles, at least four of them, were in the Army or in the military. They were hunters. They were fishermen. They were entrepreneurs, provided for their family. And this is the family out of which my mother came. So she was independent. She was entrepreneurial. She was a hard worker. She was disciplined. And she and I were only 20 years apart. So she confided in me. And I learned most of everything I know today because of my fabulous mom. When I was in Inner City Cultural Center as a student, I graduated from Los Angeles City College with a degree in theater, and later UCLA with a degree in theater. And that's once we came back to Los Angeles. After Kentucky, we moved to Washington, D.C. That's most of my high school experience. And my first acting experience in the community came while I was a teenager in Washington, D.C. And my first modeling experience was in Washington, D.C. But once we got to L.A., back to L.A., and I reunited with my dad, which was wonderful, I had a supportive environment and felt bold enough to pursue my interest in acting, and went to seek that education in college. And it was a wonderful experience. And of course, my early teachers in the university were some of my first provided some of my first inspiration, giving me confidence that I could do this and that I could move forward. But I'd say the most profound impact came when I went to a community organization called the Inner City Cultural Center. And that facility was run by an extraordinary man, C. Bernard Jackson. He was the artistic and executive director of Inner City. Inner City was a huge place. It was a former Mormon temple. Masonic temple is what it was, in the heart of Los Angeles. And it had 3 theaters. It had a space for exhibits. It had a cabaret upstairs where you could have, little jazz parties and so forth. It had a library. The Langston Hughes Library was the name of it. There was a newspaper that published out of Inner City Cultural Center. And it was run by a board of multicultural professionals. And C. Bernard Jackson, after asking me when I first walked through the doors, "So what is it you want to do?" I told him I wanted to be an actor and a singer, and I wanted to produce. And he didn't laugh at me, and he didn't discourage me, which a lot of people who are not in the business will do. Well, what are you really going to do, or what are you, going to do to back that up, because you're not going to make a living? He didn't say any of that. He said, "Okay," and he would do his chin like this, and he would say, "Okay, well, let's see." What he allowed me to do to start being active there was to bring in high school students from the local community. I would bring them in. Now, I had degrees in theater, so I would bring them in and explain to them what theater really was and not what the fantasy was, what acting really was, what the entertainment industry really was like, and not just the fantasy of becoming superstar. So I took them backstage and I introduced them to C. Bernard Jackson, who ran the place. I introduced them to the administrators who ran the board of directors. I introduced them to the makeup artist, to the stage designer, to the director, to the actors, and then brought them in to sit as patrons in the seats to watch a full production. And it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And that's how I got my toe in the door. Later, I joined the classes there. I took acting. I'll never forget, Hal DeWint was the name of my acting teacher. I'll never forget that there was a dance class downstairs by Lady Walker. I never really was a stellar classical dancer. I didn't have the body and I didn't have the skill, but I could move. And Lady Walker, by the way, was the sister of extraordinary actor Ben Vereen. Didn't categorize. She had everybody come in and start at the same level and just work. Can you do a jump? Can you do a two-step? The basic things until you were able to get to the next level. So those are some of the early people that were my mentors until I actually got working in the industry and met working professionals that I had studied about in the university.